Computer, here we go. Okay, so we're recording. We're gonna look at Miro board and how to use that for online lessons. So Miro board is an online whiteboard platform designed for lots of different purposes. People who are like software engineers who design things use it a lot. People use it for like business brainstorming sessions, and online tutors use it as well. So it's just a canvas and a platform to create stuff. So I will show you some of the main functions and features of what it does. And you guys are part of my business. I can always share boards with you. I can create stuff for you. So don't think you have to create everything from scratch. That's definitely not the case. But I do want you to understand how the board works, how to navigate it, how to do some of the features of it. So let's see, here it is. I'm sharing my screen with you guys. This is what Miro looks like when we log in. It used to be called real-time board, by the way. If you've used real-time board, it's the same thing. But they renamed it Miro, I guess, after the painter. It works somewhat differently from before. I mean, they've added a ton of new features and changed stuff up a bit from maybe if you used it a long time ago. Basically, I create all the boards and then I share them with you because I have the paid account. So don't worry about creating boards unless you just want one to play around with. If you have an account, you will have 3 free boards and that's it. You will not be able to create more than 3. However, I can share as many with you as I want from my paid account. So that's how we work that. So if you have a student, I will create them a new board and I'll kind of just give it a template setup for if they're Barton, and if they're not Barton, the board will probably just be blank, but you can add stuff to it. So let's look at what a main, let's see, I have a demo board. I'll show you that. Okay, so when you open a board, you just find it and you click on it and it'll open up like this. This is running inside of Chrome. So it's a website. It's all web-based. There's no download, none of that. So you open Miro in Chrome by going to Miro.com. Then you click on the board you want to open and it'll open like this, okay? When it opens, it will pop you into a part of the board, but the board is huge. So you can pan around it in all directions. You can zoom out, you can zoom in. It's like you're just seeing a piece of this giant board right now. So what I do is I have a mouse with a wheel on it in the middle. If you use the wheel on your mouse, it's the easy way to zoom out. So I'm wheeling backwards right now, zoom, 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 out, 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 right? The other way to zoom out, if you don't have a wheel, is down here in the lower right corner. That's 100%. There's a minus sign. If I hit the minus sign, it'll zoom it out. If I hit the plus sign, it'll zoom it in. There's also different stuff you can do with like finding yourself on the map of things on the board. So that's the kind of challenging thing about this is navigation, because you're just going to have to remember where stuff lives on the board or pan around to find it. So this board that I've set up has a lot of random stuff on it, but this is usually how I do one of my Barton students. But you can set it up however you want. Each student is going to have their own unique individualized board. And it doesn't have to just be for Barton. It can be for anything that you can use this program. So you could use it for visualizing and verbalizing. You could use it for writing practice. You could use it for math, right? Whatever you're teaching. Hey, Ellen, I'm going to go ahead and mute you just in case there's any background noise. But if you guys have any questions, unmute yourself and jump in and say something. And you know, I think you can mute and unmute just by hitting the space bar on your keyboard. I'm pretty sure that works. Okay, so I'm just gonna start at a random place and work my way around. So with Barton, we have she calls them sight words. I'll call them red words after the Orton-Gillingham term. The red words are the spelling sight words, right? They have a red letter. So let's say you're doing Barton, you're using Wizimo for the tiles, you're using Wizimo for the student sheets, but you want to have a pack of sight words that your student's working on. In Barton, they only do 3 spelling sight words at a time, and every spelling sight word only has 1 red letter, for those of you who are maybe newer to Barton. If that's confusing to you, let me know, we can talk about it later. But the way that that looks in person is that every student has an index card. I used to use little tinier ones like my business cards basically, but you can use regular size 3x5 index cards. But on here, we can create a virtual example of that. So what I did was I created a section of the board called Red Words, and I have this big black rectangle that I created, and it's covering up the red word cards because I don't want them to see them when they log in. I want them to remember them. But if they need to look at them, they can move this aside by clicking and dragging. And here's the student's red word cards. So this student has 3 sight words for spelling they're working on: said, where, and again. So I will show you how to make those from scratch, okay? So for example, I'm just gonna get rid of that and we'll create it again. Let's say your student had the red word said as a new sight word and they needed to create their red word card. You can use the Barton procedures for this, or you can do it a different way. If you know a different way from Orton-Gillingham training, totally fine. But the way that it works in the Barton is you will create a card and it'll have 1 red letter, and then that will be the first letter they misspelled, and then they'll do the process of visualizing it and writing it in the air or whatever. Actually, they write it on the table. I have them write it in the air because then I can see it. Because on the camera, you can see them doing that with skywriting. Anyway, so to create a red word card, a sight word card, you will use this typing tool. So here's the toolbar in the left here. There's a bunch of different tools on this board, but the typing tool is what you'll use for this. Actually, it's text tool. It looks like a capital T. When you click on that and then you click somewhere on the board, it's going to give you a place to type, and it says type something, but you can type over that, right? So if my student spelled said, usually they'll do like S-E-D, right? That's a common one. So let's say my student spelled said S-E-D when I was dictating the sight words to them. Now I know that the red letter in the word said is going to be the A because they did not get the A. That's the first thing they missed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type S space underscore space ID. There's a little place now for them to write a red letter A. And I'm going to change the background color of this so it looks white like these, so it looks like an index card, right? So what I'm going to do for that, this circle, it says fill and opacity color. If you click that and you click white, it changes the background to white. Now I have a white card with black text. All of these things are modifiable. It could be a blue card with yellow text or something, which is not a very good choice, but you get the idea, right? If you click on any of these white circles in the corners, you click and drag, you can resize it. So making it a little bigger. Another thing sometimes I do is change the font. If you highlight it, click and drag to highlight it, you can change the font. Right? So now it looks like it's handwritten. Whatever, you can do that. You don't have to worry about that though. You can just leave it that way too. Then what I do is I actually share control with my students so that they can write the red letter on here. Does anyone want to try that out? Try to be my student. Emma, you want to try it? I'm just
Sorry, I was saying yes, but I was on mute.
Okay, you guys are all muted. If you're saying things, I don't know. Okay, yeah, Emma, I'm sharing control with you. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna click your mouse to get control. And then you're gonna click on that pen, yep. And then you're gonna click on the red color. Yeah, you get the idea. Looks like you've done this before.
I have. This is mostly just a refresher.
And then you write an A, beautiful. So that's what I would have my student do. So that's part of the process of learning this red word. There are more steps. Consult your Barton videos if you would like to know all the steps.
I have a question. Where was the share control? I just didn't see where it was. If you.
So it's in Zoom. So when you're
yeah.
doing a
Okay.
Zoom lesson, you have to give remote control to your student.
Okay, I know where that is now. I thought
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
it was something on here. Okay, gotcha.
Yep, no problem. So I will take control back. Thank you, Emma. Now, another important principle of the board is that objects on the board do not know they need to be together. They don't know what you're trying to do. So for example, this card that says said and this red A that Emma so lovely drew on this for me is not connected together. They are not one object. They are two different objects. One is on top of the other. This is the principle called layering if you've used any kind of image editing software. So it's nice that the A is on top of the card. We wanted that, but they don't know that they need to be connected. So I'll show you what that means. If I click and drag this card, do you see what happens? The A stays there because it doesn't know they're supposed to be together. Or if I click and drag on the A, see what happens? So they're two separate objects and they move separately. If I want to link them and make them move together, here's what I need to do. I need to click outside of the whole thing that I want to group together, outside of it somewhere. And then I hold the Shift key down because I'm going to select multiple objects. And when you do that, you have to hold the Shift key down. So I'm going to Shift, click, and drag around what I want to be grouped together. You see how that works? It all turns blue. I let go of my mouse button. I let go of my Shift key. Now I've highlighted and selected both the card underneath and the A on top. Both things are selected. I want to tell the board to group them together. You do that with this, group objects. It's like a picture of some squares with another square around it. Or if you want a keyboard shortcut, it gives you that too. But if I click on group objects and then click off so they're not highlighted, what happens now is that the board treats these objects as one object and they move together. And that's what I wanted. So it's one card with some text and some drawing linked together. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So grouping objects is important because sometimes you want things to just be together and move together in one object, right? You take two things, you make them into one, or more than two things. Now, this card is too big. I'm going to resize it. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to use these little white circles to resize it and make it the same size as those other cards. It's going to live here in the Redwords land. Another thing about layering, the board layers the most recent thing you did on top of everything else. So what that means is this nice black rectangle that I created is not now going to be on top of the said yet because the said was created after the black rectangle, right? So that happens. Said is on top. If I want this black rectangle to be on top of everything else, what I need to do is select it by clicking on it, click the three dots for more, and then click bring forward. Once I've done that, I've told the board this black rectangle needs to live on top of everything else on the board. And now when I scooch it down over said, it's on top. And I can use this as a cover to hide them again. Any questions so far? Okay, so that's how I do Redwords. Another thing I do on the board is called Star Words. Some of you who have done in-person lessons are familiar with how Star Words work. It's a concept, the word Star Words comes from Linda Mood Bell, but I'm using the concept but not the words the same way. Basically, this is not in Barton. This is something that I added to Barton, but it's a useful concept. So if you have some words, and I pull these from anywhere, they can be sight words from the sight word list that they need to read. They can be from the blue sheets that they need to read. Blue sheets being the student pages. They're not blue in the PDFs. Or from anything that you're asking your student to read, maybe a read live story, right? If your student is being asked to read this and they stumble on the word and they stumble on the word and it's really a difficult word for them, put it in star words. Because what you're going to do is you're going to use this as like a little 5-minute activity at the beginning of every lesson to just review and work on fluency with those tricky words for them. And I can explain star words and the principle of how it works more later if you're not familiar. But that's what this is. The way that you would create star words on here is similar to the red words. So let's say that, let's say my student had the word, gosh, I'm trying to think of a good one that I had. I'll just do Wednesday. You can use the text tool like we were just doing, so the capital T, click on the board and type Wednesday. Now I might not want it in that font. It just kind of defaulted to the last thing I was doing, which is white background, this font, etc. So in order to change the font, I need to highlight. So click and drag to highlight like that. Click up here on the font. Click the font I want. Freedoka 1 is a good one because it's bold and it has those nice A's that aren't typewriter A's. So that's a choice. Background color over here, this little circle, fill in opacity color, change to blue so that it's not glary. Resize. Boom, now you have a flashcard with a word on it. And you can move it around. And when you use your star words process, you can put it in fast, you can put it in medium, you can put it in slow. When it's in fast, it gets tick marks, so that I use this pen tool. So if they read their fast ones, they get tick marks. If they read them again the next day, they get more tick marks. If they read them 3 times, then they get to graduate. And then I pull them over here into the graduated box. So that's just how that process works. They're just movable. So if you want to, let's say you're working on like some, not just reading the word, but what does the word mean, right? So if your student doesn't know what an iceberg is, you can find them a cool picture to go with it, right? These are all pretty safe, but every now and then I see something weird in here, so preview it maybe before you do this. But 3 dots down here gets you to something called the icon finder. This is my favorite thing. So if you click on the icon finder, it gives you a search bar and you can search for any word. You can search for unicorn, whatever. So if I want to find iceberg, I just type it in, or make your student type it in, right? Either way. And just say, okay, which one of these pictures is the best picture of an iceberg? Maybe they like, I don't know, this one, right? And then you just click and drag it. It goes onto the board as an icon, a picture. You resize it with the little white dots. You put it where you want it, next to the card maybe. And again, you're going to have to group these because the board doesn't know that you want them to be together. It thinks they're 2 separate objects. So the way you do that is shift, click, drag, highlight both things, click group objects. Now they're one thing. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, this is great because I didn't know this existed. So I've been trying to like draw all of these with the little pen tool.
Oh no.
So this is much more helpful. Thanks.
Well, I'm glad you're here then.
Yes.
Yes, drawing things with the pen tool is not very easy in here.
No, not at all. And I'm not an artist. So
yeah, for sure. I love the icon finder. Also in here in the 3 dots, if you can't find it in icon finder, Google image search is another option. So, you know, if you're trying to find a picture of something, you can type that in there and find a nice photo, right? And it'll pop it onto the board and it'll be a weird size, right? It's just going to be the size it is, but you click on it and you use those little white dots to resize, right? So that's how that works. Oh, and by the way, if you ever want to delete anything from the board, you just click on it and then you hit the delete key on your keyboard and it goes away. Another thing that's really handy is if you delete something by accident, there's an undo button. So that's really good to know about. Up here is the undo. It undoes and it goes, it's multiple levels of undo. So it'll undo like 10 things, the last 10 things you did or your student did. Sometimes if you're tutoring online, your student will take the pen tool and scribble on everything. Okay, it might look like this and it might freak you out, but don't worry, because there's an undo. Undo, bye-bye, right? Okay. So always remember the undo.
Can you take a minute to make one of those boxes again to cover, like if, since that
Yeah.
was layered and you tried, just so we can see like, if I'm
The
the
thing-
one, but the action of it, like down in there, even where you just made, you just changed iceberg or whatever you changed and it wouldn't, a box wouldn't have gone over. What was that again? Like if I wanted to cover that.
If you want to cover this,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be the shape tool.
Okay, that'd be the shape. But the other one was, what was the other directive when you made whatever you made last and then you couldn't cover it? How did you get to that? To slide it down?
The layering. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this icon is probably going to be behind this stuff. Oh, no, it's not because it's grouped.
Oh.
But yeah, I don't know why it's not. I think it has something to do with the fact that this word already existed and it was grouped. But anyway, if something, I can make it. Okay, let's say it was behind everything. Look, it's behind that. I don't want it to be behind that. I want it to be on top of that.
Right.
So what I would do is click on it, 3 dots, bring forward. Or alternatively, you can click on it, hit page up on your keyboard.
Oh, okay.
Page up, page down. Page up brings everything to the front. Page down brings everything to the back.
Okay.
So now it's on top of things. Like that. Okay. Hold on. My neighbor's yelling at me. He's trying to bring me food. Hold on.
Not.
I don't know.
anything.
You have a Mac, right?
Uh-huh.
So I don't know how it works on a Mac, but on a PC, it's Control-C, Control-V.
Yeah.
And on a Mac, it should be Command-C, Command-V, I think.
Oh, right.
And yeah, it just uses your clipboard. But maybe you're not quite, so, okay, so we're talking about copying and pasting. I just started the recording again.
Oh.
So copying and pasting is a very essential thing as well. So what I'm going to do is show you something. So if I open another tab in Chrome, I can copy and paste things from one Miro board to another one using the clipboard that lives in my machine, in my computer. So if I open, let's say, games for levels 1 through 3, it's a bunch of games on here you guys can get access to. If you want to use them, you're not supposed to use them on here, so whoever did this, naughty. You're supposed to copy them over. Anyway, so what you're going to do is you're going to highlight everything you want. So let's say you want units memory. Okay, it lives right here. So what you want is everything in this frame right here. And let's see, if you click on the frame, does that, I don't know what happens if you click on the frame and then try to copy it, but I think what I usually do is I shift click drag around everything I want, and it's highlighted the entire game, the entire field of cards, whatever you want to call them, virtual objects, right? And that's what I'm going to copy to my clipboard. So I Control-C to my clipboard. And then I'm going to click over here to my student's board. I'm going to find a spot somewhere on the board where I want this to live. And then I'm going to click there, and I'm going to Control-V, and it should appear. Now it's going to be a funky size, right? Everything's size is a little weird, but you can just resize it with the little white thing before you click off of it. Once you click off of it, resizing is difficult. But again, there's an undo. So if you accidentally clicked off of it and it didn't resize or whatever, you can always undo, get rid of it, then repaste it and try it again. So anyway, while everything's selected, I resize it the way I want. Then I click off of it. It's not selected anymore. Zoom in. The way you play a memory game is there's no way to flip cards front to back because it doesn't know what a card is and it doesn't know how to flip things. But it does know layering and it does know covering things up. So these little red things are just little rectangles I created that are covering up the words. So what you have to do is click and drag and pull them off. And so you'll do that. You'll see if they match. Ang and ink don't match. You'll undo, put them back. Then your student will do that. Ild and old don't match. Undo, put them back until you find one that matches. Right? Just like memory, concentration, whatever. So that's how you would play a game like that. And if you wanted to create a game like this, there's one for some reason that doesn't exist. All you would have to do is go ahead, remove all the covers, double click, change the words by typing. Right? So just take a template that I've created of a game and just type new words into it. Does that make sense? Oh, that's gone forever now. That's weird. Okay, anyway, if you mess a game up, like I apparently just did, all you have to do is delete it from your student's board and then copy it over from the main game board again. I just pasted it again because it was already on the clipboard, and then it's a perfect copy again, right? Which is why you should never play them on the main game board. Always copy them over. If that's not working for you, I don't know. I think something's wrong with your clipboard. Something's going on with your computer because it's interfacing. The web-based Miro board is interfacing with something actually living in your computer, right? The clipboard. So that's the piece that maybe is going wrong for you, Laura. I don't know. Okay. And again, Macs are weird. I don't know how Macs work. I'm really sorry about that. But if you have a Mac question, you can always ask Stephanie because Stephanie has a Mac and she might know the answer. Okay, so that's how that works. So you can pull games from the game boards. There are game boards for level. They're sorted by level. So this is the main board of games for levels 1 through 3 in Barton. If you zoom out, I'm doing that with my wheel again, you'll see I need to clean this up because people keep messing stuff up. But basically, there are games all over the place. You just got to kind of pan around and find what's in here. A lot of these games are Connect 4 games. So someone, again, was playing on here. Anyway, let's say you wanted Connect 4 for Book 2, Lesson 5, right? So you would shift click drag around the whole game. That's the whole game right there. You would Control C to copy it to your clipboard on your machine. You would go back to your student's board. You would find a blank space to plop it down. You would Control V to paste it, and then it would be there. Okay. So that's copying and pasting and pulling stuff from one board to another, which is very important because, again, I'm going to give you access to these different boards. You're going to have to pull things from one board to your student's board, whatever you want to be on there. I think it's pretty important, too, that you try to keep your student's board not too busy. So once you're done with a game and they don't need it anymore, you should delete it from the board. The more stuff you have living on each student's board, the slower it will load. So you're just going to bog down the memory if you keep too much stuff on your board. So again, you can just highlight stuff and click the delete key on your keyboard to get rid of it when you're done with it. And don't worry if it's a game, you can always pull it back from the main game board because it exists there, right? Does that make sense to everyone? I will send you guys the recording of this too, so you can watch it too if you want to kind of review some stuff. Okay, so let's say you wanted to modify this Connect 4 game and make it into another set of words that are not on this board. These are all nonsense words from lesson 5 and book 2, right? But let's say you wanted, level 7 lesson 2, and that doesn't exist yet, I think. So you might want words that have ER, IR, and UR instead, right? So you would double click. Like I did that like 3 times. Double click, double click, double click. And then it finally gave me a flashing cursor next to the word, which means I know I can edit it now. So if I backspace that and I type a different word, it'll change the word. Now you'll see something funky happened here, which is that the text field smooshed into this text field. Really, it's layered, but you can't tell that because they're the same color. So there's a way to fix that. You see how if I double click on this text field, it's too long. Do you see how if I mouse over the edge of that text field, you see this double arrow that appears? You can click and drag it so that it's not so long. You can just resize the text field. And then it doesn't look weird. Okay, so I'm going to undo that though and put it back the way it was. Let's say I wanted to play this game with my students, Connect 4, right? There's a couple ways you can play these Connect 4 games. The instructions are listed on the game board, but you can either roll a dice and a die, I mean, and whatever comes up is the column. You can see this column's a little weird, so I'm gonna try to fix it. Whatever comes up is the column that they're in for the words, and a 6 is wild and they can go anywhere. So that's one way you can do this. If you Google roll a die, you get dice to roll, virtual dice that they can see. So for example, I can open a new tab, Google search, roll a die, enter, boom, you've got all the dice. You click on it and it rolls it. Oops, nope, you click roll and it rolls it, I lied. So what I do is I share control with my student. My student clicks roll when it's their turn. They got a 3. They click back up here on the tabs to their board. Oops, wrong one, that one. They go to the game. Now, in order to play this game, we need tokens, right? You saw in there were like bees and stuff. We need some sort of tokens. So that's what the icon finder is good for. Again, let's say you want to be a unicorn. You can find a cool unicorn to be. You see there's a unicorn impaling someone. There's sometimes weird stuff on here. You can be a unicorn, you can be a dragon, right? Whatever you want to be, it doesn't matter. Well, that's a cute dragon. So I just typed a word, clicked and dragged, and then there they are, they're on the board. Since they were created after the game was plopped onto the board, they will be on top. So you don't have to worry about the layering thing, right? Hold on one second. Okay, so anyway, we're playing Connect 4. One thing I always like to do with the games, because you can accidentally click and move the game around, and you don't want that to happen. If you don't want stuff to move around when you click on it, you do what's called locking. Basically, you pin it down. So if I want to pin this game down, I will click on it. It will be highlighted like this. I will go here and I will click on the little locky picture and it will lock it. Now when I click on the game, what happens is the entire board moves instead, right? Instead of it moving around. It's just a nice thing because you don't want stuff just randomly moving around. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and then what I would do for my student is I would go ahead and copy and paste more pictures of unicorns, and then copy and paste more pictures of dragons so that we have tokens to play with, right? So my student rolled a 3. They would come over here, they would take their dragon, and they would pick one of the words in the 3 column to read to me. Hwak, for example. If these were real words, I might make them also tell me a sentence using the word, depending on if we're working a little bit on vocab or whatever. And then it would be my turn. I would go to roll a die, and I would click roll. And it would say 2, and then I would take my unicorn, and I would go thok, right? And you would just go back and forth until someone gets 4 in a row. So that's one way to play this game. The other way is just to pretend it's like normal Connect 4 and that there's gravity and things fall to the bottom. So if they pick this column, they have to go down here, shock, right? And I'd have to go here, walks, right? Does that make sense? So there's a bunch of these for like pretty much every lesson in Barton, so you can use those for games. I like to spend the last like 5 to 10 minutes playing a game that reviews something that I know they need to work on. Okay, so that sort of went over main principles that you need to know. Typing using the pen tool. We didn't talk much about the shape tool, but if you want a square or rectangle, you click on the shape tool, you click on the square, you click and drag a square, and it'll give you the outline of a square or rectangle, but it won't fill it in unless you click here, fill and opacity color, again, just like the text tool had, and you will say, I want it to be black or whatever color, right? And then it will create a square for you, should you need that for some reason. And of course, you can resize it just like you did the text tool. If you mouse over the edge, it gives you these double arrows. You can resize things. You can make it longer that way. You can make it longer that way. You can use the corners and make it bigger and smaller, however you want to do it. If you accidentally click on this, it will rotate it, right? So funky things might happen that you don't want to happen. What do you do then? Undo, right? Undo is always available for your needs if you mess things up. let's say I don't want this rectangle here anymore. I will click on it. It will highlight it. I will push the delete key on my keyboard. Boom, it's gone. So that covers games. Other thing you might need to know, let's say you wanted the book 3 spelling rules cheat sheet that I created on here, for example. This is a PDF file. So I'm going to delete it and show you how I got it on here. If you want to add something to the board, which is not Icon Finder or Google Images or whatever, but lives on your hard drive somewhere, you will click this upload key right here. It's below the arrow. It's the second thing down. It's a picture of a square with an arrow pointing into it. Upload. So when you click on upload, it gives you some options of where it wants to pull that upload from. Does it want to pull it from your computer, from a URL and a website, from saved files, from Chrome, etc., etc. So usually I just download something to my computer and then I upload it from my computer because that's the easiest way to find it. So if I click on my device and I click on, let's say, yeah, so you'll have like desktop, you'll have whatever shows up on yours. I can usually navigate to stuff pretty easily on here. So I want to find my Barton level 3. Where is it? Spelling rules, yes. Spelling rules cheat sheet. That one. So I clicked on it, double clicked, there it is. It's on the board now. And I can resize it. And I can click the lock button so it doesn't move around. Another handy thing to do is to make a cover for this, especially when you're in level 4 and your student doesn't know all the spelling rules, so you're not like confusing them with spelling rules they don't need. I would change that to maybe black like that. So I might just cover up these spelling rules if they don't have them yet, like that. So let's say my student only knows Z-floss and kiss the cat, right? So if they only know floss and kiss the cat, then that's all I want to show them. Or you could also pull the Barton spelling rule flashcards, which she created and are on the website. You could pull those onto your computer and pop them onto here and use them as like drill practice for the rules if you wanted to. Other things about PDFs. Did this already get separated? I think it did. So PDFs can be multiple pages. This book 4 cheat sheet was actually 2 pages. So I'm going to show you what to do with that. So let's say that we have book 4 cheat sheet 2. There you go. Okay, so let's say I pull the PDF on here. Nope, that's not right. Where is it? That one? Okay, well, this is not exactly the one I wanted, but it'll work because it's 2 pages. So you see when I click on it, up here it says 1 of 2, right? So this is page 1 of 2. If I click this, it'll scroll to page 2 of 2, but it takes forever and it's kind of cumbersome and dumb, and I don't want to do it that way. So what I want to do is I want to split this out into 2 separate things, right? 1 page, 2 page. See them both at the same time next to each other. So the way to do that is if you click on it, you'll see this kind of like layered thing called extract pages with a bunch of rectangles. If you click extract pages, it will pull all, however many pages you tell it, but I'm going to click all because there's only 2 pages, and click extract, and there you go. Now it's 2 pages next to each other instead of just 1 page with a flippy thing. That's a very handy thing if you have PDFs. If you have a very, very large PDF, you may not want to extract all the pages onto the board because it might be a lot. If you need me to split a PDF up into different sections for you, let me know. I have Adobe and I can do that. Or you can print to PDF only certain pages and then it'll do that for you with your printer, basically your printer thing. Okay, Yeah, and these are the Barton spelling rules flashcards. This is what they look like. They look kind of weird when you pull them onto the board. It's kind of fuzzy because it takes a minute to load, but like these are from level 6, but like the rise, right? So if you wanted to cover up the answers like that, you just draw a square, right? And you say, okay, tell me the rice rule. And then they will tell you at the end is CE, right? After a long vowel is usually CE, right? So they should tell you that. So you could do that as like a little like review. Let's see. Oh, you can also make word sorts. That's what I did here. I pulled this from the Miro board master games piece, and then you can just move these words around. So I have my students like put them in the right category and then tell me what the word says, read it to me as they do that. So they can just like click and drag them. So like track is a CK, croc is a CK, musk is just a K, right? Tract is a CT. It's not really a game, but it's an activity they can do that'll help. Try to see if there's anything. There's another word sort I made for book 4. More memory games. So pull whatever you need onto here, but like I said, go ahead and delete it if you don't need it anymore. So if I click and drag around all of this and hit delete, it'll go away. This is locked, so I have to unlock it first and then delete it. If it's locked, it won't let you delete it. If you want a spot for them to check cups on their sentences, capitalization, understanding, punctuation, and spelling, I made that too. It'll be on here. If you have a Barton student, it'll already be on your board. But basically, you can have them type. Right? So if they, let's say, make a sentence like this. Okay, you dictated that. They said it back to you. They typed it. It's not quite right yet. We're going to make it bigger so we can see it better. And then we're going to check cups. So I'll say, okay, what's the C stand for? And they'll say capitalization. And they'll be like, oh, I need to capitalize Stan. And then if you double click in there, you can fix it, right? You can kind of go through all that. And you can give them little check marks too if you want. Check, like that, using the pen tool. And then when you're done, you have to delete your check marks, right? And then one more thing. So if you do want to just keep a packet of PDFs, you can do that. These are my book 3 or review pages packet of PDFs. So let's say you're just reviewing, this is a 46-page PDF. I do not want to extract 46 pages onto the board. Oh, Miro is being updated, okay. I would just, scroll to the page you need. It's going to come up. Like, for example, let's say we need to work on this one. Okay, let's say, okay, well, on this page, we're going to change the order of the letters to create a real word with a blend at the end. So maybe for this one, you would use the typing tool and you would click on here and you would have to maybe resize that, but we'll see. And they'll go, okay, I think it's gift. We'll make it smaller like that. And then we'll move it up. Or if they're a little more apt with the mouse, they can try to write it out. Or you can just have them tell you and you can type it or write it. Either way, those are all ways to do it. These are extra practice pages 3 and 4 usually. This is a 5. They don't live in Wizimo because Wizimo doesn't have those. It just has 1 and 2. But if you need more practice pages, they're on the drive. You'll have to put them in a PDF file onto your hard drive, pull them onto the board with that upload tool, and then do it this way. Which is the same thing you would do with, let's say, Barton fluency drills, any other PDFs that are not in Wizimo, right? You can just pull them onto here and use them and write on them and do whatever. Now, the thing is, you're going to have to delete your answers to things before you turn the page. Otherwise, they're just going to still be there. It doesn't know, right? See? So you could just, it's all moving together somehow. That's funny. You could just shift, click, and drag outside of that. Just select your answers, delete them, then they're gone. You gotta kind of clean stuff up. Okay, I think that covers about everything. Does anyone have any questions about anything? Okay. Cool. So hopefully this is a thing that you guys can see using. I just showed you how to do stuff with Barton, but if you want to do another program and you're not quite sure what to do, like Emma, I think we can stay on and talk a little bit about High Noon and how that would work.
Okay.
And that might apply, Wendy, to you as well, because some of that stuff is OG stuff that's not Barton. So we could start chatting about that if you want. And if you guys want to stay and learn about that too, that's fine. So for that stuff, what that's gonna look, I'll just show you my students board, and I can share this stuff with you. I don't know, I can always share this board with you, but the student that I created this stuff on for, and Emma, I'll probably just copy this board and you can just use it. And we were playing Hangman. So you see the different stuff we do, right? So we were playing Hangman here. She did really well. She guessed the words. Trying to find. Here we go. Okay, there's a lot of stuff on her board. It loads a little slower, but so blending drills is a thing I do with people in High Noon, and that's a thing that's from OG. I have different blending drills I've created. So these are sticky notes, and the sticky notes live right here. Sticky note tool. They come in different colors. You can click one, you can put it there, you can type a letter on it, and then it becomes basically a card, right? Mm-hmm. Different than using the typing tool because it's a little faster, and they're all uniform size. I have a bunch of these and they're all kind of wonky, so I'm going to use this thing that lines things up. So I'm going to line them up vertically and horizontally. Boom, boom. Okay, that's better. So I've created like basically a card pack out of these sticky notes, and I can just share this with you so you don't have to recreate it, but there's different ones for different types of syllables. So when you're just starting out in High Noon, you're just going to have closed syllables, silent E syllables, and open syllables. Those are the ones that kind of come first. So you might use this closed and open syllables drill. Now you can't have this with this, they don't go together, so I would actually just remove the final pack, and I shift clicked and dragged to move them all away. So this is a real word, so we can't have that either. You got to go till you get something like this, and then you say, okay, sound this out for me. You're trying to make nonsense words with the card pack. So they would say sp-ung, spung, right? And there's all the units in here, ong, ung, ang. We call them closed syllable exceptions if you're not using Barton. Or in Wilson, they're called glued sounds, I believe. And then if you just want to do closed syllables, you can get rid of those, and then you can just have a single vowel in the middle, right? So then you would have your student sound that out, sp, out, spout. That's kind of a weird one because there's an L in it. Maybe this one, sp, aft, spaft, right? So this is how you would do just basically an OG card pack drill. If you want open syllables, you just take the final pack away, and then you would say, that's not a good one. We do this like spoo, or, oh, there's my units again. You can layer them however you want, but this is just how they are. There. Snee, right? We do snee, and then I could be like, okay, well, what happens if I close that syllable with this one? It would be sneft. What happened to the vowel? It went from long to short, etc. Right? Does that kind of make sense? So that's for those type of syllables. I have a different one for silent E syllables because the U, well, the silent E is there, basically. Not too much different. And then I have a different one for vowel teams and vowel Rs, right? So basically, you just practice different nonsense words using those. And Emma, when I'm doing High Noon, you can do it a lot of different ways, but you might just spend the first maybe 10 minutes of your lesson on doing a card pack drill and just running through some different ones that she needs to practice. This is the blending part. There's 3-part drill. So this is the blending part of it. If you want to do an actual card pack for your students, you could create that too, right? And just run through that at the beginning if you're used to doing it that way. Whatever you think they need. But you can't shuffle cards. So the only way to kind of rearrange these is just to kind of pull them out and then maybe layer them differently. So like I could put all of these on top by doing page up, and then they all go on top of all the other ones. So like that. And then if you want to line them up, you use this thing, line them up, because they get messy. Does that make sense? So this is basically me like kind of jury rigging some cards onto this board because it doesn't really know what cards are. Just knows what sticky notes are. Another thing I did with this student was we sorted some words that she had in her Star Wars box by how they were spelled, you know, sound and spelling. So that's a thing you can do. Not in High Noon, but it's a thing you can do. Cups box, when we dictate sentences in the workbook in High Noon, there will be sentences. I type them on here. Well, my student types them on here, we work on them, and then I have her copy them into her workbook, which is a physical workbook that she writes in. So for Harper, doing High Noon, we'll probably want to get her a reading book and a workbook.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask about.
We'll want to get you a teacher manual, so you have all those things.
So there's not like a Wizmo basically for High Noon.
No, because
physical books.
Yes, there is not the concept of tiles in High Noon. However, you can definitely use them. So what I've been doing is opening Wizmo to the Barton level that makes sense for the things my student would have known by then in High Noon, and using that to practice some spelling words from previous lessons. But High Noon is reading and not spelling.
Right.
You have to pull some spelling in there and just kind of do it.
Yeah, I just meant more like there's not like a preloaded like online kind of version thing. Okay.
There's nothing online created for it. I just create stuff. I just do Star Words. So this is what her Star Words box looks like. You can see there's tiles on here too. So if Wizmo's down, you can use these. And then I just create more tiles as I need them. So we practice, like she's learned ah and ah. So like I'll pull some of the words from the ah lesson. And in the teacher's manual, it gives you a bunch of words. And then you could just say, okay, let's build a word. And then I'll build it like this with the tiles I created on here. So fawn, right? So you kind of have to just use your imagination a little more and create different activities around the words in the word lists that they're giving you in High Noon to make sure that they're practicing the things they need to practice. Like we made these little vowel teams. The first letter is the one that does the talking, right? So there was that. And then she also knew Barton level 3, so we had Barton 3 spelling rules on here. So we kept reviewing Barton 3 spelling rules into High Noon because she knew those. And then this other thing I did called build words. So I just created this. There's a bunch of circles, and here's how this would work. So, oops. What I do here is I pull a word from a past lesson that she struggled with. I put the vowels yellow and the consonants blue like Barton. I put everything in here but an extra tile. So when I tell her the word is thaw, she says thaw back to me, and she has to pick the right tiles from the circle for thaw. So she might go th, and then she has to decide which one says aw. Because I know she made this mistake in the past. She thought this was an aw, but it wasn't. So I'm just kind of like targeted practicing some spelling, but this is a student who maybe has some more limited cognitive skills, and I don't want to overload her with all the tiles for spelling. Although we've switched and now started doing all the tiles, and she's actually doing really well. But at first, this is kind of the more like narrowed up activity that I was doing with her. So again, these are just sticky notes. The circles come from the shape tool. Here's circles. And then I would have her label that this was a vowel team syllable, right? Or if, you know, in High Noon, they're all called vowel teams. There's no diphthongs syllables. Yeah, so she's gotten pretty far in High Noon. This is toward the end of level 1 of High Noon. So
sorry,
it'll take you a while.
Grab Finley. She's running up the stairs.
Oh, no problem. So that's kind of how you do more like OG stuff on here. Trying to see if there's anything else I did on here. I created a vowel team matching game where we just matched the same word, right? So it's kind of disassembled state, but it lives. There's a High Noon board you can pull these kind of games from if you are doing just straight up OG or High Noon. Oh, and then High Noon vocabulary. is another thing we do on here. So that's, I just pull those PDFs on here. And there was another game I made for her that was just, well, it's not really a game, it's more of an activity. Just said, add the silent E, change the vowel sound, because she was learning silent E and she was having trouble distinguishing, does this say ban or bane, right? So I would have her read to me the words and then slide the E over and then read the word with the E. And every time she got one right, she got a point until she reached the very highest score of 22. Right? So you can see, you can just like have an individual student, everything's individualized on their Miro board, which I really like, and they like
Can
too.
you show the difference of like a tile versus when you made a card? Like you said, you could make tiles. Is one of these at the left where you find the tile?
The tiles.
Yeah.
So the tiles are image files that I made a long time ago before
Okay.
Wizimo existed, and they will be populated onto your real-time board already, so you can use them. However, there are not all of the tiles, so if you need to make more, like I did here, you'll see they look different because they are Post-its.
Okay, I wondered if they were Post-its. Okay,
Yeah.
and then you can just change the size.
Yep.
Okay.
You just type it on there, change the size. So
cool.
Yeah, and then like DGE, we just took a D, a G, and an E, and we grouped them together.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
To make the DGE tile. Because at some point Wizimo started existing and I didn't have to do it this way anymore. And then the EA, we kind of just finagled an EA out of the EE. So there's different ways you can do it. But like I said, at some point I took, and these don't, you know, you have to just kind of pull them around and move them around. They don't know how to go back to their home like they do in Wizimo.
So when you share and make us a board, that will be on there too.
Yep.
The tiles.
When I make you a board,
okay,
it'll have a star word like this Star Words box. It'll have the tiles that are backup if Wizmo's down. It'll have a red word section. It'll have a cups section, but all the stuff that's filled in won't be there. I think it'll have this book 3 spelling rules, and this is a link to the games from the Barton website. So if you click there and then click there, it'll take you to the Barton website games. So if you want to play a hangman for level 3 lesson 2, you click on the hangman and there it is. Blends at the beginning and it says hint is spit yesterday, and then you click on where letters until you fill it in. So if you want something kind of pre-made, you can use that. Although I will say the clues on here are kind of weird. So especially when you get into level 4, the clues are super weird. So I like just making my own hangmans. I use phrases for hangman because that's easier, because they usually can guess a letter that's in the whole phrase. But also I give them lots of hints and thinking about like the different types of words that might be in a phrase. I tell them it's a who phrase or a did what phrase or whatever. So there's just a lot of opportunities for teaching while you're playing that way. And as you can see, we were playing different hangman or different, yeah, so for high noon, I made an words game. So these are the kind of words that she was working on. She was having a lot of trouble reading the words, so we had to just practice it with a game. And we keep score up here, you know. And we also did like silent letter pairs, and we sorted them by n-s, right? So there's lots of different things you can do. These are just Post-it notes. This is just me writing. This is just a line, which is also in the shape is the line tool. This is the line tool right here. So if you want to draw a line, you click and drag and it makes a line, right? So Emma, we can chat more about high noon specifically and how to do it once you get a teacher's manual, which I'm assuming you don't have yet.
No.
Okay. I will send you one, and I will send Harper her stuff that she needs. And then once you have that, we should meet again and kind of go over like the process of what a lesson in high noon might look like and how to do that online and everything.
Okay.